Hey everybody, Blaze here. I just wanted to take a few minutes to share some information and thoughts on an upcoming event that I'm extremely excited for. It's the Highway to the Zemus Zone, also known as the Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise League Season 2. The details for the 2019 league were announced last night, and I'm just really excited and I wanted to share some of my thoughts on the event. I thought it would be really neat to kind of create a primer, not only for people who are planning on participating in the event, but also people who might just be interested in watching the event as well. So first of all, just for anybody who's not familiar with the game, let me give you a quick overview of FF4 Free Enterprise. FF4 FE, as we call it, is an open world randomizer version of Final Fantasy IV, which was released for the Super Nintendo way back in 1991. The randomizer version is open world because you begin the game with the Enterprise airship, and you can also, because of that, go to many more initial locations than you could in the original game. Much of the game's content is also randomized, with characters, bosses, events, treasures, and more just being shuffled around, so things can happen very differently than in the normal version of the game. And then the end result is a game experience that's non-linear, it's very repeatable because it's different every time, and offers players a variety of different strategies to progress to the final battle, and then defeat everyone's favorite interdimensional space baddie, Zeromus. So if you haven't checked it out before, it's fantastic, even just for viewing purposes, but also it's a really fun game to play. If you want more information, I posted the website here on the video. It's ff4fe.com. And I'd also encourage anybody who's curious about the game to join the Discord. The Discord in particular is full of resources that are going to help you learn the game. And just the community itself is full of fantastic people that are more than happy to help you out if you have any questions about anything. So onto the league itself, just a quick little overview of how it's going to work. So beginning in July, about a month from now, there's going to be qualifiers that are going to take place. And they're going to use a score-based system to determine everybody's best qualifying time that participates. And then they're going to use that system to place the top 32 competitors into the main event. And then from there, kind of start over again, sort of like the regular season, if you think about it that way. And each of the 32 runners is going to participate in 4 preliminary round-robin matches against 3 other random participants. Each of those matches, pretty simple scoring system. It's going to be a 4-way race. First place gets 4 points, second place gets 3 points, third place gets 2 points, and the fourth place finisher gets 1 point. So everybody's going to get 4 of those round-robin style races, and then after 4 prelims and a little bit of a knockout round, there's going to be, the dust is going to settle. There's going to be 16 people that reach the playoff stage. And then from there, it's going to get whittled down to the final 4, and they're going to have a championship match sometime in September. So it's going to be going on all summer. It's going to involve a lot of people, and it's going to be a lot of fun. In order to prepare for the event, again, whether you are going to be hoping to play in the event or just maybe spectate, you should know a little bit about the flag set that's being used in the event. Now, the good thing this year is that the flag set is going to be the exact same thing from beginning to end. So they're not going to change the flags at all as the event goes on. It's just going to be the flag set, the same flags all the way from beginning to end. So to kind of talk about those flags a little bit here, I kind of broke them up into 5 different groups, and I'm just going to sort of talk through sort of how they all work, just so you kind of understand some of the mechanics that we're going to be using when we play the game. So the first flags are going to be the game mode and key item location flags. V1 is the Forge the Crystal variant. So in this game mode, you need to collect the Adamant and Legend Sword key items. You're going to take those 2 key items to Kokel's Forge in the Underworld, and then he's going to forge the crystal for you. The crystal is the key item that you need to defeat Zeromus at the end of the game. That next block of flags there, KQM, that refers to where the game's 16 key items are going to be located. In this case, it's going to include all the traditional key item locations, as well as the summon bosses like Leviathan and Bahamut, and the moon boss locations in the final dungeon, the Lunar Subterrane. So this creates a total of 28 possible locations where your Adamant or Legend Sword may be hiding. So it makes the game a little bit more of a scavenger hunt. You're probably going to have to complete a higher percentage of those checks. in order to finish the game, rather than just maybe lucking into the crystal early on and, just kind of being able to race to the finish. And then the final one here, the PK flag, that just means that the pass item, which is used as an alternate means to reach that final Zeromus fight, is included in the key item shuffle. Let's see, the next set of flags here are the character-based flags. And these are a little bit different than some of the flags that we've used in competitive events before. The biggest change is the character flags themselves. So you can see the CNX there. This means that there's going to be no guarantee that each character will appear. Normally, when you're playing FF4 Free Enterprise, they take the 12 characters in the game, they shuffle those 12 characters around, so you always have a chance of getting each of the 12 characters at some point in your run. However, in this version, there's going to be no guarantees that way. And in fact, you could actually get duplicate characters. Now, you could get duplicates of really strong characters, or you could get duplicates of really weak characters. It's just going to sort of depend on how each seed plays out. And then the other little, the X part there just means that the two strongest characters, Edge and Fusoya, are always going to be locked behind key item checks. So you're never going to get them kind of easily when you're playing the game. The other ones here, the JA flag turns on the Japanese abilities that were included in the original version of the game. Most of these aren't really useful, but there are a few exceptions, like Yang's focus ability probably being the most useful of them. The F flag is what's known as the Fusoya challenge, means that each time you defeat a boss, Fusoya learns 3 of his spells, as well as gaining 100 hit points. So you kind of have to power him up over the course of the run. This next flag's really interesting, and I'll probably talk about it a little bit more later, but that's what's called the agility agnostic flag. When you're playing the normal version of the game, basically what happens is the game uses Cecil as its agility base for performing all battle calculations, but the agility agnostic flag that we use takes that restriction away, and it makes it so whoever is your middle character in your formation is going to be your agility anchor. And again, we'll kind of talk about the implications of that a little bit more later on. The next flag, the Hobbs flag, that allows Riddy to learn a free low-level summon by going to Mount Hobbs at any time. Sometimes can be useful early on in the game. And then last but not least, we have the X flags there, which govern how the party grows through experience. In this game mode, you're going to see all the party members gaining quite a bit of experience. It's not going to be split up between them. The experience is also going to be doubled after you find 10 key items, and lower level party members are going to actually gain bonus experience based on their relative level compared to the rest of the party. So you can actually use that to do what's called slingshotting low level characters so that they catch up sometimes even just through the course of one fight. So that's pretty interesting, but it's basically going to make it so that all of your characters are going to have very accelerated experience growth throughout the run. The next flags we have are the boss fight and encounter flags. These are pretty straightforward. The B flag just means that all your bosses are going to be shuffled, with the exception of Zeromus. And when that happens, each boss's stats are scaled relative to the location in which you find them. And then the E flags govern random encounters. In this mode, you're allowed to toggle them on and off, and that applies to all non-boss fights. There are times where you'll see or maybe want to turn on random encounters when you're playing the game, but this is pretty situational. Next up, we have the treasure and shop flags. So the way this works, you see some numbers there. So T flags are going to be for treasure found in chests. And in the game mode, they're also randomized and shuffled, including trap chest locations. So the T3 means that you're going to be able to find any treasure in any chest, excluding the game's most powerful items. And the way to think about that is the game uses a tiering system from 1 to 4. So 4 is the most powerful, 1 is the least powerful. And so T3 includes everything in tiers 1, 2, and 3. And then we can also apply that to the shop flags, which is the S flags, and we can see that the shops are going to contain items that are in tier 1 and tier 2. The next flag, the JI flag, means that the game's Japanese items are included in the randomizer. And this is pretty strategic and powerful. The Japanese items are generally very good as they allow your party members to cast, they basically act as spells. So your party members can use items in place of spells that they normally wouldn't have access to. and also because their items, sometimes they get around certain restrictions that the game puts on spells. So you're going to see a lot of interesting play with those Japanese items when you watch or run the format. And then the last thing here, this no adamants flag. So this means that the adamant armor item is going to be excluded from all the games. Adamant armor is the single most powerful armor in the game in terms of stats, and then it's completely broken by the fact that any character can equip it. So on one hand, you're going to see a little bit more struggling because players won't necessarily have access to that adamant armor, but at the same time, you're going to see a lot more creative and strategic gameplay throughout the event because of that. Sometimes the adamant armor can be used a little bit as a crutch sometimes to get you through difficult situations, so it should make for some really interesting gameplay. And last but not least, with the flags, we've got the challenges and glitches. So the N flags we affectionately refer to in the community as the free lunch flags. And N just means no free lunch. So in this case, no free characters. You're going to have to earn every character that you get, either through finding a key item or fighting a boss. And then there's no free key item that you typically get from Edward in the bed in Toroya Castle. Instead, players are going to have to hunt down and defeat the Mist Dragon. And when you do that, you can receive an additional key item reward from Rydia's mom in Mist Village. So again, just add some more interesting elements to the game in terms of how it gets played, and nothing comes cheap. So makes for lots of interesting gameplay. And then last but not least here, we've got the glitch flags. The only glitch we will be using during the event is the life glitch. So GL is the life glitch. If you haven't seen it before, it's a relatively easy and low impact glitch. Basically what the life glitch is if you're playing and you use a life potion or a spell on a dying monster that's not a boss, you can gain double the experience and gold that you normally would for defeating it, because it counts it as 2 monster kills. So that's going to take us through the flags that are going to be used in the event. And now I just wanted to share, and I guess this is a little bit, maybe a little bit of like a chalk talk or something for people that are going to be participating in the event, but also just some stuff to watch out for if you're just viewing the event. So my kind of like lessons that I would hope, or tips that I would give to people that are going to be practicing and playing in the event. The first thing is just do plenty of looting and shopping. You're going to want to go digging for those good items and equipment, and you're also going to need money to buy all those broken items, especially the Japanese items that you're going to need throughout the game. You're always going to want to get a healthy stock of items like sirens, hourglasses, star veils, Bacchus wines, and things like that. They're going to power you through to the end game, and you're not going to be able to get there without them. So take the time to do some looting, take the time to do your shop checks, pay attention to where stuff is, and make sure that you stock yourself up accordingly. The next thing is take time to build your party. So this is kind of interesting based on those character flags that I was mentioning. So there's no guarantees that any particular character is going to be in the any individual game that you play, but at the same time you might have a very powerful character pool as well. So you kind of have to know what you need, and if you're not getting it, don't be afraid to do a little bit of a longer check for a key item that also involves maybe like a character reward or something like that. So just as an example, I did my first practice seed this morning in the format, and I found 2 Fusoyas at the top of the Tower of Zot. So that's just something that would be almost impossible to get without this particular flag set. And needless to say, having 2 Fusoyas versus 0 Fusoyas is quite the game changer. So you're going to really want to take the time to build your party, do those character checks, and make sure you have the people that you need to take it to the end. The next thing is just kind of learning to prioritize your key item checks. And another way to think about this, I like to always think about, in my opinion, the 2 most important questions for anybody playing FF4 Free Enterprise are what do I need and what can I handle? And the what do I need question can push you more in the direction of, what your priority should be, whether it's looting, shopping, character checks, pushing forward to another key item check, maybe stopping to do a little bit of level grinding. So you need to kind of be able to assess objectively what your party needs to sort of progress a little bit further on. And then the next question, what can I handle? That's going to be sort of knowing the relative strength of your party as well as their strengths and weaknesses relative to the opportunities that are in front of you. So the what can I handle question might push you to make a riskier or maybe more unexpected play. If you've already gotten your party and your gear squared away and you're well equipped for that, key item checker dungeon or whatever, one of the best ways to win a race of FF4 for Enterprise is to make that play that you think you can make, but somebody else is going to maybe bypass or put off until later. You got to gamble a little bit. You got to roll the dice, and knowing, being aware and smartly aware of all of the different options that you might have in front of you is a really good way to know when to take those gambles, and, hopefully they'll pay off. The next thing, got a couple more here. Know your grind options. So, in my opinion, one of the most underrated skills in FF4 FE is knowing how to gain experience points quickly and efficiently. You might run into situations in the early game, mid game, or the late game where you just need to gain some levels. And knowing the best way to do that is a huge advantage. Two of the most common ways to grind levels are to use sirens in a variety of locations. That's a Japanese key item that summons a monster fight. But you can also use the Darkness Crystal to enter the Giant of Babel and do what's known as the D-Machine grind. And those are both fairly situational. They do require you to either have the items or the key item plus, ideally the weak spell in order to do. There's going to be times where you don't have that stuff and you're not going to really have access to those options. So knowing kind of like backup grind strats is also really important as well. It's going to get you out of a bind in an efficient manner. And the other thing to always think about is if you're struggling with something, the odds are pretty good that somebody else is struggling with it as well in the competition with you. So if you're the one that can figure out the solution to that problem in a quick and efficient manner, it's just going to put you ahead of somebody else who's struggling to figure that problem out. And then just the last thing I have as far as tips, and honestly, a lot of these are going to be useful regardless of what format you're playing of FF4 FE. But this one in particular, where you're going to have so much variance in your character party, the characters that are in your party throughout the game and when you reach the end of the game, you want to be really comfortable with the variety of Zeromus fight strategies that exist out there. So just for those of you who haven't really done a lot of Zeromus fighting before, or you're really comfortable maybe just doing it one way or another, or just doing it maybe like at really high levels so it's always just kind of safe, generally you want to focus your attack towards either magic damage or physical damage. If you're using a magic-based attack, we call those reflect strats. You're going to want to start counting your damage right away at the beginning of the fight. And you're going to want to use those high-level spells, high damage spells like Nuke and White, if you have them, are the best. And you're going to want to reflect them off your own party members. Now, until you reach the 40k damage mark, you're going to be able to throw in other attacks as well. So you can fight with some of your fighters. If you got Edge, he can throw stuff at Zeromus. But as soon as you hit that 40k damage mark, you got to switch to only spells. And the reason for that is Zeromus has this thing in his script where if he's directly damaged after 40,000 hit points, his hit points reset. So it essentially doubles the length of the fight. And as long as you don't directly cast a spell on him, as long as you're bouncing it off of those walls and reflecting, you bypass that hit point refill, and it allows you to kill Zeromus in roughly half the time. So that's a really great strat for speedrunning if you have the party to do it. The other really good way to do the Zeromus fight is to focus on physical damage, and you're usually going to use either Berserk spells or Bacchus Wine to inflict Berserk on your party in order to best do that. And then the rest of your characters are going to be in support. There's also a middle ground strategy known as hybrid strats where you're kind of doing a mix of the two. Hybrid strats are just fine. You're just going to need to be cognizant of the fact that the fight might take a little bit longer. You might have to stop and reapply Berserk or Reflect or do some healing along the way. But if that's the party you've got, if that's the hand you're dealt, there's nothing wrong with doing hybrid strats as well. There's also a really specific and advanced Zeromus strategy going around right now that uses Edward's hide ability. I don't really know that one super well myself, but we'll leave that to the experts to kind of explain. But yeah, there's another kind of fourth viable strategy out there right now, which is a little bit of like a cheese strategy for Zeromus. So More on that in the future. But basically, again, reflect strats, berserk strats, and then hybrid's kind of a middle ground between the two. One last thing on the Zeromus fight that I kind of alluded to earlier, but just a quick primer on agility for the Zeromus fight. The agility anchor is probably the most important thing to know when you're planning for your Zeromus fight. You need to know the agility of the character that you're going to have in that middle slot that's going to be your anchor. The rule of thumb, there's been some more advanced learning on this, I would say, more recently. But the rule of thumb is the number 28. If you have a character that's exactly 28 agility, make them your agility anchor every single time and you will not be disappointed. If you have a character that's slightly higher than 28, that works fine too, in my experience, gets the job done. You do not want to go lower than 28 if you can possibly help it. It's going to be a rough time. Instead, what you should do if you're not going to have a character that's like 28 or 29, 30 agility is you want to just take the character with the lowest level or lowest agility possible. And then ideally slap like a curse string on them that gives them minus 15 agility. There's other items that give a negative agility modifier. And then put them in the middle slot, make their agility as low as possible. If you kind of sense that coming on, maybe while you're doing your final grind of levels, leave that character dead so their agility stays artificially lower that way. But just get that agility as low as you can. And that's especially useful for berserk strats because having your agility anchor at a low agility is going to actually speed up your characters as well. So that's kind of my two tips on agility is to either go for 28 or maybe something slightly above 28 or just the lowest agility that you can possibly get, and you should be just fine. One last thing I'd like to mention, because it's something I did some pretty extensive testing on as well, is if you're doing those reflect strats where you're going to be picking spells out of the menu quite a bit, you want to set your battle speed to 3. And setting the battle speed to 3 is the most effective way to do reflect strats because it slows down the timer for Zeromus enough that you don't miss out, or he's not too fast when you're manually moving to menus and selecting your spells, but it's also fast enough relative to like the other battle speeds where your fight itself isn't much slower. So battle speed 3 is really, really useful for Zeromus when you're doing those reflect strats. So again, that's just a quick overview of the different ways that you can fight Zeromus. Again, gives you something to look out for if you're just a viewer or things to practice if you're going to be a participant. If you're watching the broadcasts of the races, these are also things that the commentators will likely point out, allude to, discuss during the broadcast. And if you kind of know what they're talking about, it's just going to make your viewing experience much more enjoyable as well. So again, that kind of covers what I wanted to put together for this Highway to the Zemus Zone promo here for everybody. And again, I just want to encourage everybody to check out the event, check out the website, check out the Discord. It's a really great community again. And to all of the admins and organizers who are putting this on again, I know how much, or I don't know personally, but I have a sense how much work and planning goes into this. I just want to say for me personally, I really appreciate this, and it's a fantastic event, and I can't wait to participate in it. So if anybody has any specific questions or comments on this video, feel free to post them in the comments, or you can always find me on Discord or jump onto that FF4 FE Discord and ask there because, like I said, people there love to help. We love new people on the Discord, and we'd be happy to assist you in any way that we can. So again, that's the Highway to the Zemus Zone coming to you in July through September of this year. I'm hoping to be a participant, and I hope you all come and check it out. Thanks.